still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters, the three amigos. The perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend, and hope you're all safe. Horrendous weather in the northeast, and big shout out to Mrs. Penman in the Philippines, who's been dealing with the earthquakes and God knows what else has been chucked at her this week, Stu. But I know there's a few viewers who know you personally. They'll be pleased to know that she's made it tough stuff, your Mrs. Stu.
She certainly is. She survived. So, so what do you say? I hope she's not watching, to be fair. But because, as you know, I've got a lot on at work at the minute, and it's like 12, 13, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's best she goes home and spends time with her family. And just I think it's the first earthquake in that area for 400 years. So I can't be blamed for that. But anyway, there's a real family community. It's like how it used to be back in the day, as we knew it, where everyone clubs together and everyone looks out for each other. And, you know, I know we've had a bit light-hearted humour during the week about it between us. You know, like you get people saying they're stressed if they're snapping an acrylic nail these days. You know, but imagine having I sent you a video, but don't share it, but I sent you a video with 8 of them having to sleep in a car because they couldn't sleep in the house because in case the aftershocks caused. The last aftershock was this morning, and it was 5.1, which I thought was all right. And it shook 400 times plus, I think. But they reckon it's going to get less after that. So they've spent the last couple of days in the field, which I've had plenty of jokes about, of what nobody lives in the field. And thankfully, most of it goes over ahead. But they're surviving and they're getting on. And I've passed on everyone's best wishes. Have I touched something? No, I don't want to share that. So thank you for asking, and she'll be fine.
Good stuff. Excellent. Well, we'll send our best to her, and fingers crossed everything gets better over the next couple of days. Okay. Let's talk about the Champions League win first before I get into John Askew's email. He sent us an email, which I will read out, so we'll come to that second. But a Champions League win, okay, it wasn't Barcelona, George, but it was a comprehensive 4-0 win. The one thing that will get is our confidence up. It gets us 3 points. And hopefully leads us into getting 3 points at the weekend as well, which we'll come to towards the end of the show. But good result against Union SG, George.
Well, even better than good, in my opinion. I mean, it's our first away win in Europe, so add that to the tally. More important for me was it brought together what I've been hoping for the last couple of weeks, in every game we've played in, we've had spells where we looked really good, but then disappeared and struggled to get it back again. Well, on Wednesday night, we started on the front foot and we stayed on the front foot. And it was good to see some of the players who have been struggling beforehand, like Elanga, who's not being the Elanga that we saw at Nottingham Forest. Suddenly on Wednesday night, he was just unplayable and rightly got man of the match. I agreed with that. But then there were others came back, more like the real Anthony Gordon, and the midfield was supreme. And when you go to the back with the two centre backs, I mean, they're just unimaginable. The play on the ground now is so good, as well as in the air, and they're going to be with you for such a long time. It really is. Fantastic. After that, the intricate football of our new centre forward. His close control for such a big bloke is out of this world. And anybody at first, everybody thought Tonali had scored, or anybody watching that again could see that his little back heel at the ball was quite deliberate and changed the direction of the ball significantly to claim the first goal. And then I liked the bit further through when Gordon was going to take the penalties, who wanted to take them? But our Mr. Valdemar wanted to take them. And I loved at the press conference when Eddie Howe was asked about that. You designated who would take them. Are you upset because Valdemar wanted to take them? He said, no, I want a centre forward that wants to score goals. I'm quite happy about that. The lads on the field will sort it out. But I don't mind somebody wanting to score goals who's a striker. And I just thought handled very well. So all in all, the whole night was something of a triumph, including for the fans. I have to say I wasn't over surprised. I mean, if you look at any site at the Belgian league, even when it was at its heyday, know that it was never anything better than the championship. If that, only a couple of teams could reach those heights. So, but still, they have beaten everybody that there was to beat to be champions. And just before we went, they had beaten the previous champions 3-0 or something like that. So we went when they were on a high, and we just knocked the stuffing out of them. That's absolutely great. And my hope, and as I suspect a lot of people's hopes, is that will carry on to Sunday, because if it does, then we're in for an interesting Sunday. I want to do a shout out to Peter Armand, a man who comes all the way from Lancashire to see every Newcastle game if he can find a pub or a club to watch it on TV. But he likes the local atmosphere. Well, having been a member at Newcastle United for years, he actually got a ticket for the Arsenal game in the ballot, and then decided he'd treat himself to coming into the Irish Centre to see if he could find any of the NUFC Matters people. Well, because he found a lot of it, didn't he? So I promised him a mention, and it's never fails to amaze me what these real supporters are like, how far they're prepared to travel just to get the atmosphere, just to be in the city, never mind be in the ground when there's a match on. So I've done my duty and given them a mention, and it was really good to share a coke with them. It was a nice afternoon.
Good stuff. Joe, great result, 4-0, a couple of penalties chucked in there. Lovely goal from Valdemar, and Harvey Barnes doing what he does best, which is come on from the bench and make a difference.
I thought we were brilliant, Steve. It was nice. I'll start off by saying I was slightly. I'd heard a lot of good things about them, and I thought, what type of game's it going to be? Never come across them before. They're on their uppers, playing really well in their league. But I thought from start to finish, yes, they had a couple of shots. Nick Pope made a couple of saves. But other than that, we just blew them away, didn't we? We were far too good for them up front. I started to get a little bit excited about that forward line. I know that's the first time we'd seen it. what a footballer we've signed there, and the nonsense coming from Bayern Munich that we're idiots and we've overpaid for him. Well, if that's the skill of the lad, and he's going to start scoring goals, his link-up play, the ball glued to his foot. He looks like an absolute class act. And yes, it's early doors, and I am an excitable kid sometimes, and I do get carried away. But we don't look like idiots at all. And if he goes on and scores 20 goals this season and keeps playing like he is, there's only one idiot, and that might be Bayern Munich. So he was brilliant. I thought Anthony Elanga was unplayable, and as George said, that's the Anthony Elanga we thought we'd signed, and hopefully that's the Anthony Elanga now that will continue to grow, build his confidence. Frightening attack, those balls down the side must be a dream for Trippier. Your mate just launched that and off you go. I thought he was class the way he cut inside for the penalty. He was too quick for them, too good for them. And then, of course, Anthony Gordon. And I know we talk about Anthony Gordon a lot. It's a big season for him. Took those penalties phenomenally well. And if we were ever worried about the gap that a certain player left when it comes to putting penalties away, if Anthony Gordon's going to continue to strike the ball like that, we've got nothing to worry about. So that was great. As George said, the midfield was fantastic. Tonali just strolled about like a generalissimo, just snuffing everything out and generally being class. And I thought the defenders were brilliant, and Malik Chow looks like a footballer as well as Sven Botman, who I love, as people know. So all in all, I thought it was brilliant. It was a great run out. It was more miles in the legs for the lads who needed it. Substitutions worked quite well. And great to see Harvey Barnes on the score sheet. So, and I believe we're above Barcelona in the league now. So,
and Liverpool.
And Liverpool, yeah. Don't forget that. So all in all, cracking week. The acid test, of course, is can we pick that up and do it again on Sunday? If we start like that, if we play like that, and if we attack like that, chances are we'll be all right on Sunday. Good
stuff. Okay, Mitch, great result. I guess that we're in that little section of games now where we need to pick up points if we're going to get through the next stage.
Absolutely, and I think we did exceptionally well. You can only really beat who's in front of you, but we made sure we did, and we did it, comfortably. Looked like a cracking away day, seeing lots of familiar faces in the crowd and being sent stuff all day didn't make us jealous whatsoever. It looked like it was a real good trip all around. I think it's a long time, if ever, that I look at our collection of defenders and take, say, 9 players and say, per many back 4 out of those 9, and I'd feel comfortable. And we've got that luxury of riches at the moment there. And that we could play, an all 6 foot plus back 4. We could play a more mobile back 4. We could play a back 4 where everybody's more comfortable on the ball. You name it. And I think that is going to be a huge platform going forward. Tonali, I thought, was a real work up, powerhouse in midfield as normal. And that front 3 does excite. But then kudos to the people who come on. They took their chances and made an impact. I thought the last goal, the work Asula did for the assist and the final pass for Barnes was very good indeed. And with the news of Wissa's extended delay to coming back, that can only stand everybody as well in good stead to have that working away up front and have that confidence. So something really to build on. Yeah, quite correct. In a very important part of the season now, where we need more than just the good performances and the hard luck stories. We need the points to go with it. And getting used to putting 2 or 3 past the team isn't a bad way to go about doing it, is it? Mute Steve.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Stu, 3-1, your favourite scoreline. I thought we were going to get that at one point. They did manage to get into our box a couple of times, but yeah, 4-0, great result, and on to the next one.
definitely. It was a confidence booster that we needed, I think, because if you look at reflection at the start of last season, we were getting points that the performances didn't deserve, but this season we haven't got the points that the performances have deserved. And it was one in the eye for all those doom and gloom merchants who said that we're going to struggle and we're bigging up USG. Ultimately, sometimes we forget what a class team we've got, how good the players are, how good the management is. But when things start good against you, as they have in certain games, but bear in mind, we've already lost to Barcelona, Liverpool, Arsenal, and it's only because it's early in the season that makes the overall picture look worse. But if you consider that had Voldemort signed and been able to play, we would have scored probably one against at least Aston Villa, probably Bournemouth and possibly Leeds, and the table will look so different. But this team's now gelling together, and it does take time. And if you think about anyone else in your work role, when you go to another job, when you first get there, you have to get to know your workmates, and whether it's just a bit of banter or how they work efficiently. But they're gelling very, very quickly. And as George said, it's great to see Voldemort hit the ground running. Yes. Is it too early to judge him? Well, no, not when he's doing what he's doing, because we'll only get better. And that's what Joe was alluding to as well. He's controlling. I don't understand why. He's got critics, not just from what Bayern Munich said, because that's just like I suppose the phrase you want is sauerkrauts, isn't it? But what you have is even Newcastle fans. He's not this. He's not that. He should be this. He should be that. I reckon Eddie Howe has more managerial ability in one eyelash than most of us have who watch and criticise. And sometimes we should just let them get on with it. And the guy doesn't lack confidence. He wants the ball. He was wanting the penalties. Now, to be fair, in the fairness of balance, if those penalties were given against us, there might have been a bit more debate, should we say, online. However, it turns, you've got the fact that Voldemort was clearly punched against Arsenal, and then using the word punch again, the sucker punch comes to the guy who should have been sent off, scores the winner. But it goes, and no one ever seems to complain when it goes in your favour. And it's always the worst referee every week. Every week it's the worst referee. But for me, they did what we know they can do. And that's been the frustrating part is supporters. We know they're capable of much better. And yes, it's a one-off, but for me, ignited the fact that this could be the start of something. And for once, the international break may come a bit too early for us, as we seem to be building ahead of steam. But to counteract that will give the ones who are in international duty, thankfully, Voldemort is not. And you've got Lewis Hall's not. It'll give them time to get more fitness in them, more strategy in them. And we should come back after the Forest game. Our next game's Brighton away. Or is it Benfica? One of the two. We should come back a lot stronger. And as Mitch referenced there, we can mix and match now. We don't have to rely on the starting 11 and knowing whoever's coming off the bench weakens the team. So we should actually be in a very, very happy place. Not just because of the result, but because of the attitude, the performance, the commitment. And I can't really complain. I think the one tweet I did put out, which got a bit of traction, was where AC Milan's now our feeder club. If you look at Joe, he looks class, doesn't he? As did Tonali, since we've signed him. And you think, we're getting their players since when have Newcastle, in my lifetime, probably in George's lifetime, being able to pick players from AC Milan at will like that. And the way that some of them have settled quicker without pointing fingers at others, because we don't want to talk about other people, how Voldemort is settled and into the team. He's already got the team spirit. He's got the right attitude. He's got the right personality. He seems to take everything in his giant stride. And that's what we want. And it goes back to Eddie Howe making sure we sign the right person. Never mind the right player, we sign the right person first and foremost. And I think this team will gel a lot quicker than others who have signed a lot of players through the summer. So I think it's all positive. We've got a lot to look forward to.
We'll have a lot to look forward to. Disappointing news and positive news came from the press conference today, George. We heard Ramsey is going to be available again quicker than we thought. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for Johan Wissa, who is going to have another 4 to 5 games on the sideline. Not a setback as in terms of an extra injury or anything like that, which can sometimes happen. I think it tends to be quite precautionary with the injury that he's got. That's what seems to be suggested. So not a setback as such, but a setback in the sense that we've lost him now for another 4 or 5 games, which means we'll just get him back to get him fit in time to go to AFCON. So not the greatest start for Johan Wissa.
No, and it could only happen in Newcastle, by a player who's rarely been injured in his career, and suddenly he comes to us and he gets injured playing for somebody else. That can only be a Newcastle story. I mean, if there's any plus out of that is that we're being careful. We're being maybe ultra careful in some ways, because we paid a penalty a couple of years ago with particularly with Botman, with his injury. He was back and he was out and he was in and he was out, and then eventually the operation that lots of people were saying when he had the first injury should have been done, had to be done anyway. Now I'm don't want any more of that. If they're being cautious and ultra cautious, then I'm happy about that. Yes, it's sad as regards the fact he won't be involved in playing in games, but I'm happier that when we do get a fit with Wissa back, he really is fit and not in for a couple of games, then out for a few more games. That would be the worst of all worlds for me. And the other side, as Neil touched on it, is that slowly but surely, Eddie Howe seems to be coaxing the player that we know is inside our young centre forward to come out. And it certainly did on Wednesday night. I mean, that hold off to get the final ball through for Harvey Barnes was absolutely, top class. Now, if he can keep doing that and we get a bit more out of him, then fine. And the other side of it is, of course, is that if J.K. Ramsey's available to play, there may be an opportunity because he's versatile enough to do other things than be a midfielder. He's also, for Villa, scored quite a few goals. Is there some way we can use him to add to things? So it isn't brilliant news, but I don't think it's all bad news either. And I'd far rather we were cautious than do the things that we did with Sven Botman's the best example I can remember, is that he wanted to, and I've got a feeling, of course, so all along that some of that was the player saying, "Oh yes, I'll play. Yes, I'll play." Well, that's all stopped now by the sound of it. Now that we've got Mr. Bunce and others looking after them, and that's all positive to me. So yes, it's sad, but let's be careful and make sure when they come back they're properly fit.
Yeah, as I said, Joe, it's good news and bad news really on the injury front. No new injuries, and I guess as well, I mean, George has touched on Bunce and what he's done since he came to the club, but Lewis Hall's minutes are being managed. I know that's upset a few people when they saw Dan Burn going in at left back again. People just like to whinge, of course. But, Lewis Hall, his minutes are being managed, and, I guess we have to be thankful that we're not making mistakes like we did with Botman.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we just going to brush over Mark Byers' joke there? Are we just going to?
Yeah, I mean, I shook my head at it. I think that's all it warrants. Really.
I saw it as well.
Jokes are funny, Joe. Jokes are funny.
Yeah, I think you're right, and as George said, it's doing it properly. Yes, it's typical Newcastle United that we finally get a number 9 and we're not going to see him for months. But, that's what Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall get paid for, don't they? So what we're going to do instead. And a player that I've been a little bit not critical of, but I've been, puzzling out who he is, what he is and what he brings. But I tell you something, Will Asula all of a sudden looks like a centre forward. So whatever they've done over the summer, and there's a real opportunity there for that lad to stake his claim. probably wasn't expecting to get the games that he's getting, and here he is as our next kind of, forward off, certainly off the bench. So yeah, let's leave it to Mr. Bunce. He's on a lot of money, and that's what he gets paid for, to manage people. We've now got Tino Livramento, of course, that's also going to need to be managed really, really carefully. But I agree, Lewis Hall, let's not have him back in the team marauding up and down the wing and then his hamstring goes. And, we're doing it properly. And what's nice about doing it properly is we've actually got the squad to be able to do it properly. And I think that's one of the differences. In the past, I think some of these players, Sven Botman was a case in point. I think the mismanagement of his big injury was that we didn't really have a choice. He had to play. And therefore, he kept breaking down. He doesn't have to play now. Kieran Trippier can play on both sides. We've got Byrne. We can go 3 at the back. We can have Jacob Murphy in a kind of wing-back role if, we've done that before. We've got options. So, yes, it's a massive shame, but it's not all doom and gloom. And I think that's testament to the squad that we're building. And in terms of Jacob Ramsey, I think that's fantastic news because I do think he's an excellent footballer. So hopefully he's back fit, 100% fit. Hopefully he'll play play a part on Sunday, and then after the international break, as Stewie said, let's get the lads on the training pitch for a fortnight, and let's go and give Brighton it.
Yeah, I've got young Alex Murphy coming through as well, who can't be far away. He's in and around the squad. I guess he's just got to keep chipping away and getting himself into that kind of, getting himself in Eddie's good books and getting in with him. I guess. Can you believe even after the result, there's still idiots on other platforms saying Eddie out, complete upwards. I can't wait, Assassin. That's why I never watched them. Mitch, the injury updates. One good one bad one. Joe's rightly mentioned Tino Livramento as well. We thought, looking at it, none of us are doctors in that essence as regards ACLs, but we all looked at it and thought, oh God, he's done his knee again. He's out for 12 months. But it was slightly better news in the fact that he's only going to miss a couple of months.
And it was the way he landed in another one that seems to slip by VAR for analysis because he was forced to land in fashion.
Absolutely.
That certainly wasn't a natural way to come down. He was certainly assisted by a certain Arsenal defender.
Should he not have stayed down, Mitch? Because I've only managed to watch the game back today, and I remember it in real time, but I had to rewatch it again just to make sure that I hadn't dreamt this. But he actually got back up and cleared the ball. Now I don't know whether he cleared the ball with the foot, with the leg that's actually injured, or whether it was his other. But he should have just stayed down.
It's easy to say that in the heat of the game, though, mate.
True.
The problem with some of these players, and again, you talk to the sportsmen and people I speak to, and they say they're a different breed, that they'll do things with an injury that you or I would be in bed with. And that they'll play through things, and that, the amount of tales I've heard of professional sportsmen turning up with a sports medicine doc with it basically a tiny piece of ligament holding their entire knee together, fully intending to play a full game, and this is part of the problem. And also why they need managed carefully, partly because some of the players work on a different level to you and I, and partly because ligament injuries are exceptionally variable in terms of healing and repair. It's why they always have a range. It's always 2 to 4 weeks or 4 to 6, or because there's no two alike. We were told that Rodgers wasn't going to be available. Suddenly he's available for the weekend. And so these all need managed very carefully because we've learned a lesson with other players. And a certain departed centre forward with his thigh injury that was allowed to go away with Sweden, and he made it worse rather than being managed properly. So we've kind of learned a lesson about that. That unfortunately, the situation we were saying in the AFCON is there's not a lot we can do about that either, because FIFA have made it so that the hot hand when it comes to the players' future, when there's a tournament like African Nations or Euros on, it's in the hands of the players' country, not the club. And so anybody go to say, oh, can we tell him not to go? We've got no choice in the matter. And if he happened to be injured, they'd sure as hell send him to an independent assessment. And if we were caught telling fibs, we'd be hammered on it. So we'll have to kind of just deal with it, really. And I think the best way to deal with it is get the best out of him when he's fit, and allow the time to get what we can out of Asula as he develops now. There's opportunities there, not just threats. And the more that, turn out like Wednesday night, the better, really. But we certainly seem to have our heads more screwed on when it comes to injury management, when it comes to easing players back in. Everybody championing at the bit to have Hall in, but the actual phrase that I think Eddie used was, he still doesn't feel right in his body, whatever that means. I don't know whether that means he's having some sort of spiritual experience at the moment. But either way, if he's not feeling right, then we're right not to push him. And so I think, again, this is where the beauty of having that squad is now. We're better off as a squad. For me, probably still a couple of bodies late, but we're certainly far better off than we were. And I trust anybody who comes into that starting lineup to do a job for and do their job. I think it's really, really impressive to see how the squad's gelling. Just little things like Bruno pushing Chow to the front when they were chanting his name in the crowd at the end of the game, and Chow being quite humble about it, almost quite embarrassed. And yet there's Bruno doing it, saying, hey, that's singing your name, go and recognise it. And that's really the squad that we wanted for a while, but we're seeing the benefit on the pitch as well.
Yeah, certainly have. Stu, look, it's part and parcel of the season for any club, injuries. Newcastle have had their fair share over the years. But this, these ones aren't at this moment in time, and I'm going to touch wood as I say it, they aren't affecting us maybe like they would have in the previous Champions League campaign. And that's because, as the lads have mentioned, we've got a squad now.
Yeah, well, we've always had a squad, but what Joe said is we've got a quality squad now. And not that you welcome injuries, but we're more than capable of handling it. But the original question in this round was regarding Wissa, like how we've lost him for another few weeks. We've never lost him because we never had him. So when he does come back, you have to take also into consideration that he's had no proper pre-season. And a lot of players will bust a gut for their country. I know maybe it's not so popular in Europe, in the Western world, but if you get yourself into Africa, the country means everything to them. And the fact that he's representing his country, you can understand why he wanted to play 90 minutes both games, and probably in the back of his mind, I want to get fit enough and get the minutes under my belt so I can go to Newcastle, which we all know he wanted to join. But when he does come back, yeah, I think for me it was inevitable. I said it earlier on between us that it was always likely to happen that the time scale was going to be extended because they need to get him proper fit. There's no point in rushing him back for a recurrence to happen. And with the way the squad's playing, we know that we can have that luxury at the moment. And yes, AFCON's round, but I don't think Congo are going to go that deep in it, to be fair. But he'll go, and rightly so, and we knew that when we signed him. But the thing that worries me is something that Alan McKenzie put on. Now, it might be in the fact he's been celebrating the win in Belgium too much, but like literally, I suppose, because he was must have been talking about Brussels, because he was mentioning the strong winds knocking the conkers over. So just keep off the Brussels sprouts midweek, Alan. That's the easy way to solve that. But with Wissa, he will come. We all know he's scored. There's no risk in that. And not that I want to correct Dr. Neil, but we have Ramsey. We don't have the other one that you mentioned.
Yeah. I knew I was saying the wrong name, mate.
But he, all of a sudden, and something you've said so many times, Mitch, they become a better player when they're not playing. And he's only played like a little bit for us, and now all of a sudden he's going to come as a world beater. He is a squad player that increases the ability of our squad. He's not going to be a regular starter unless there's injuries. But that just shows what sort of squad that we are building now. And again, we should be able to take pleasure from it. And I know you mentioned that earlier. Barnes came on and does what Barnes is probably best at, is to be an impact sub. I know he doesn't want to be labelled as that, but that's what he does best. And I'm happy for Gordon, because I didn't criticise him last week. I pointed out that he could be doing better. And it looked like to me on Wednesday night that he'd learned not just to fall over at the slightest contact, and actually stay on your feet and do what you're actually excellent at. And that's take people on, find space, find a player, run into space. And he had the bit between his teeth, and that for me bodes well for us if we're getting him back. I know it's early stages, but getting Anthony Gordon back at full strength is a massive, massive boost for Newcastle United. So again, I like to be positive. I get called over positive, blah, blah, blah. But for me, I think we've got many reasons to be cheerful without starting singing a song from the 60s or 70s.
Christ, you're negative compared to George. How dare you call yourself confident when George is on this platform? Lots of questions coming in from John Askew. He did email us one. I'm trying to think of which one's the best. I'm not going to go through your Willisula one, because we've already really spoke about Willisula, and he has done quite well. I'm going to read your email, John, because he did send it, and I've given it a mention. So he said, I've got a problem with Anthony Gordon, but it might just be me, and I'm interested in other people's opinions. Apparently, he had his head turned by Liverpool last year, but does that really explain his underperformances last season? And while he was efficient from the penalty spot the other night, does that suddenly transform a suspect season so far into a good one? Probably not, to be honest. There's no doubt he's got plenty of ability, especially with his pace, but is he more for himself than the team? Time and time again, the simple, quick pass is on, but far too often he holds on to the ball, negatively impacting our flow and allowing the opposition's defence to get back into position. But if he just went for the simple, quick pass option, our chances would increase considerably. It's not like we've been on song creating chances so far, in spite of the game in Brussels. The Premier League is a different gravy. And what do you think of him basically telling Big Nick where to go when it came to the penalties? Is it not better to have a striker taking them anyway, as long as he's good enough? Again, it appears the ego gets in the way. Perhaps he could learn a bit about team play and humility on more than one level from Voldemort. Now there's someone who seems to grasp the importance of the team and teamwork. Great start to his team career, by the way. Keep it going, Bonnie lad. It's not a rant. It's just a little bit of a whinge, because the tighter we are as a unit, the better we'll be on the pitch. And I'm just not convinced that War Anthony is a team player, unlike the majority of his colleagues. That's not to say he can't be effective. He's shown on his day he can do the business, but do we need to see the good stuff far more consistently? Just play quicker and simpler, man. Just a view. Thank you, John. Good email. What's your views on what he's got to say, George?
Well, the non-team player just doesn't hold up. Every time you see Anthony Gordon speaking on YouTube, on television interviews, he's outstanding, and always is generating an atmosphere where he appreciates his colleagues, he appreciates the team, appreciates the city he's living in. So that bit of it I find very difficult to accept at all. And in terms of on the field, yes, he hasn't had the best season so far, but he's a team player in another sense. That if anyhow asked him to play in goal, Anthony Gordon would play in bloody goal. He's not a centre forward. Everybody tells him that. But when Eddie Howe says, I need a centre forward, he'll have a go. He'll do it. And does that impact on his form in his real position, or the position he'd prefer? And does he whinge about it? No, he just gets on with it and does his best for it. I don't know how else you can be a better team player than doing that. So as to the simple thing, Anthony Gordon is a flair player, and he likes to take men on and have the beating of men. If we take that away from him, you might as well just play Jacob Murphy or some other player. It's those extra bits of football skill and knowledge that we want out of Anthony Gordon. But I do seriously wonder if you're looking at John's looking at the same player, because everything I see about Anthony Gordon, it bleeds black and white. And as regards the penalties, when we'll start let players decide who takes the penalties on the field after they've they've already decided in the dressing room. Then we've got anarchy on the field. And like Eddie Howe said, he loved the fact that Valdemar had the cheek to go and ask to take them because he wants his strikers to take them. But he'd also said that he knew Anthony Gordon would take them because Anthony Gordon had been practicing penalties all week. So if that's not being a team player, I don't know what is. So roll on Anthony Gordon on Sunday and show a bit more of what you showed on Wednesday.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, George, I agree with you. I've always liked Anthony Gordon. I know there's a lot of people didn't want him to come to the club. I was the polar opposite. I wanted him to come to Newcastle. I could see the benefit of having him, and I think he's given us more good days than he's given us bad. And I've got to agree with a couple of people in the chat who said, essentially, Kurt Johnson, this is it. I've said before, we don't see the best from Gordon when he's played out of position. Gordon on the left is where he is best, and I would agree with that. Joe, yeah, Anthony Gordon, and to be fair to John Askew, he's not giving him stick. He just wants to, he just wants to have a little bit of a whinge, he says.
Well, it's a fair point, isn't it, Steve? We all view the game differently, and that's great. I agree partly with what John's saying, but there's another part of me that thinks, you get that with Maverick players, don't you? You want that sometimes, don't you? That little bit of greed, that little bit of, that overplaying. Yeah, when it's blatant, when there's a blatant ball on and he's trying to do flicks and turns and, yes, it's frustrating, but take that out of his game. You take Anthony Gordon away, don't you, to a point. Eddie will allow some of that, some of that kind of flair play, some of that just go out there and enjoy yourself. We hear that quite a lot, don't we? And I get the sense that Gordon's one of those real confidence players. Completely agree. He is better on the left-hand side. I don't think we get the best out of him, particularly when he's used as that centre forward. And sometimes, unfortunately, we've had to resort to that. I think you lose what he's best at. And I think if Anthony Elanga's sharing some of the weight, if Nick Waltermada's sharing some of the weight, or Wissers when he's fit, suddenly Gordon's not the be-all and end-all, because he's been the main man for too long, hasn't he? And if Gordon's not playing or Gordon doesn't score, Newcastle kind of don't play and Newcastle don't score. So I think it is a big season for him, Steve. He's an England international. We're heading into a World Cup. There's talk of Liverpool that never goes away. Mo Salah's getting older and older, isn't he? And someone's going to have to fill in that position, out wide for them. Is Anthony Gordon going to be the man to do that? Well, if he is, he maybe needs to step his performances up a little bit. He scored the other night. I don't mind him taking penalties at all. I've just said that with the quality of them. I mean, that one that hit the right in the corner, no goalkeeper in the world was saving that. It was a tremendous strike. So keep doing that, mate. That's all we want you to do. Get your head down, get to the byline, get the ball in, and hopefully we'll score a goal. But don't lose some of that magic, because I think we detract from the footballer that we bought.
Yeah, 3 goals in some start for Anthony Gordon in the Champions League. The boy is doing his job well, says Nick Phil. Anthony Gordon has said he made plenty of penalties that he couldn't take over the years because of our strikers, and now he wants them over everyone else, Yvonne, which was interesting. And Lilia says, I love Anthony Gordon even when he was in Everton. Yeah, he was a constant thorn in player sides at Everton, but I think he's got a winner's mentality. Maybe one criticism could be that he overthinks things, maybe. But he's an intelligent footballer, likes to read, which is interesting. But yeah, Mitch, thoughts on John's email about Anthony Gordon?
I think he overthinks things, and I think he overtries. And I think he's one of these players. I think that's why he gets himself sent off sometimes. His frustration boiling over almost at himself. And I think Joe's quite right. If we temper that and take that away, you don't quite have the same player. And I think it's teaching him how to direct that energy in the right way. He talks about, you remember when early on he gave that interview with Gary Neville on the seafront, and he's talking about mindfulness and visualization and using all those tactics, and that's what he needs to keep doing, but to channel that energy in a positive way. And I think those goals will do him some good. That game will do him some good, and I think now we'll see him start to really come into his own. And he's needed that. He's needed to get the sending off out of his system. amongst other things. So I don't see somebody who's selfish as such. I see someone who's driven, who sometimes will make a more selfish decision on the pitch. But I think strikers like him have got to be allowed to do that. I think it comes with the territory. And you take that away, and again, as Joe said, they're not the same player. And I think you've got to allow them to be that player, and accept the foibles and accept the frustration, because that's all part of helping him mature along the way. And he stayed in that England squad ahead of Foden, ahead of Grealish, both of whom are not in the squad. And I think that's significant, that he's seen by the England manager as someone he can rely on in that squad. And I think that's another important boost for him personally. That will only help us in the long run.
Okay, Stu, thoughts on the email from John? He's in the chat. He says he's glad that he's caused an interesting debate. Thank you, John.
I actually agree with John. And I'm loath to criticise players when they're not doing well, because that's when they need the support, which is what I said last time on the channel. But now, after scoring 2 penalties, he's turned the corner and he's a world beater again. For me, and it's about opinions, this is why we're on this platform, Anthony Gordon over the last 6 months has frustrated me more than any other Newcastle player. But that's a credit to Anthony Gordon, because we know what he's capable of, we know how good he is. And all I've seen recently, when I say recently, I'm talking about that 6-month period, is minimal contact, falling over, rolling over, grabbing his ankle. And I'm from a day where you never let the opposition show you get hurt. You get kicked, you get back up, and you get past them. And we know his ability. And the fact he's got the ability, he could knock the ball past and then take a 20-yard sprint and beat 9 out of 10 defenders he's up against. But it's the predictability of it, whether it's confidence or, I'll say this tongue-in-cheek because I've got none, whether it's his new hairstyle getting in his eyes, but it's predictability when he gets the ball and cuts inside constantly. And then, as I said, the slightest touch, he falls over. But for me, the turning point for him and what's going to benefit us, and again, it's just my opinion, was Marcus Rashford lashing those 2 goals in against us for Barcelona. Because Mitch just mentioned there, he's been in the England squads and he hasn't played well for us. And sometimes England have been guilty of doing that, picking the same people, not to, rather than on merit, not on merit, but on reputation. And I will challenge any Newcastle fan to say Anthony Gordon's give me or give us an 8 out of 10 performance at any time in the last 6 months. We know he can. And if Wednesday turned the corner for him, then we're all happy. And again, Mitch alluded to his mental strength, but we can all be mentally strong when things are going well. All of us. But when things aren't going well, that's the test of character of the person. But talking about Rashford, you've got Eze, who's played out left for England. You've got Madueke, Grealish. All of these are having a good start to the season. And I think that's maybe shook him a bit and thinking, right, I don't want to be rolling over, grabbing an ankle out the slightest touch on me hip or me back. I know I'm better than this. And if I don't do well this season, he might want to move away. He might have wanted to move away, but he's with us for at least the next, 9 months? And he's got to make the best of it. He's not going to be on that plane to the World Cup. And things like that can actually focus someone's mind. And I'm not saying he's selfish, but players have to be at the top talent. They have to have that little bit of selfishness inside them. But I think he's happy where he is. I think he's happy in the squad. Maybe he got too complacent. And I agree he's been played out of position. And on Wednesday, he was allowed to play in that position. And if he replicates his performance on Wednesday, if you look at the game again, you watch the first 20 minutes, and it's been Anthony Gordon that we've seen touch, contact, fall over, and you get up on your soft shite, because that's how we were brought up. But then all of a sudden, he did something good, and that tells me he is a confidence player. And if 2 penalties, well-taken penalties, by the way, gives him that confidence, then we're all going to benefit. So if we use an analogy of flights, when he was at Everton and when he first came to us, he was sitting in economy. And then he came to us and started playing well. And he was one of those in the economy that got to sit near the front so you can get off the plane first. And then he had that breakout season where he got in the England squad, become a regular, scored lots of goals, made assists. He was everything that he dreamed or believed he could be. And he's had a taste of business class. And then all of a sudden, this last 6 months, he's been stuck back in economy and he doesn't like it. So now, if someone's just pulled that curtain back and says, there's business class again for your body, lad, go and take it. And the curtains I'm talking about, the ones in the aeroplane, not on his heat. So let them get through. Let them get through there. Let them get on back in there and perform. And that's why it frustrates me, because like Joe said, he's a top quality player. He's not just a good player. He's a top quality player on his day. But 60 minutes in Belgium's not to convince me that he's turned a corner. Another 90 minutes on Sunday, another 90 minutes against Brighton, another 90 minutes against Benfica. Then we've got our Anthony Gordon back that we know can destroy defences, petrify defences. And that's why he's frustrated me, because everyone can say you can try and all that, but we are at a level where we don't just need triers, we need people who can perform at the highest level, and he can, and he hasn't been. So if I'm being negative after trying to be positive, I'm just calling it as I see it. And Anthony Gordon's far more capable than what he's produced for us over the last 6 months, but I bit my tongue on it simply because he hadn't been playing that well. But now he's had a good game. I hope that's the start of him getting back to where he was and actually getting past where he was, because believe me, he has the talent. He really has. And if that 2 penalties is given that belief, we're all going to be very, very happy for it.
Yeah, good stuff, John. Thank you for the question and much appreciated. Now is the time, if you are easily upset by a little bit of humour, to probably go and put the kettle on or go and have a cigarette or a cigar outside, or go and top up your drink, because it is, or both, yes, it is. So yes, please, if you're easily offended, leave the room now. We'll start with a few signs just to warm you up. One of George's favourite streets, apparently, Fanny Avenue, George.
Yes.
Funny that it's in a bush as well. And please have your nuts weighed at the register during checkout, said this sign in America. We like to get unfortunately placed signs, and crematorium gets defibrillator. This is the Optimus of the Year award that's been handed out. And this guy feels like this crab is threatening me. Get out of London. Very good. Excuse me while I put away King Henry VIII's milk. Sell by date, October the 23rd, 1538. Couple of tweets and texts thinking we should give Mum a break from Christmas dinner duties this year, don't you? You and me could have a right laugh cooking together instead. What's your thoughts? Awful shout. A, you don't bench your best player on the biggest game of the season. And B, letting you have any involvement whatsoever in making the Christmas dinner would be disrespectful to the birthday boy, Jesus Christ himself. Very good. Here is a tweet. My wife and I are sitting on the couch watching TV and I hear a text. Realising I left my phone in the kitchen, I get up and go to the kitchen to check it. It's a text from the wife. Please bring the chips on your way back.
Oh.
And Dad didn't fix stuff with YouTube in the 70s, lads. He fixed it with swearing. 100%. I think that's very true. Moby Dick. Well, a lot of people said it didn't exist. Here it is. And this was an uncomfortable explanation from this dog. I swear, honey, I'm just as surprised as you. And I can't believe it. First I'm diagnosed with dyslexia, and now I've got tiny tits. Tinnitus, Amy. You have tinnitus. And giving away my ex's old clothes if anyone needs them.
Oh.
Very, very clever. Very clever. And they said a mask and gloves were enough to go to the grocery store. They lied. Everybody else had clothes on. And some programmes come with a warning when they're like this. But Postman Pat's changed a bit since I last watched it. And I know you all like my singing, so here we go. Oreo Speedwagon. I can't fight this feeling anymore. Or how about this one? In the midnight hour, she cried, mole, mole, mole. Thanks for them. And my wife and I were trying to set up a password for our computer. I typed in my penis. My wife fell on the floor dying from laughter because the screen said, not long enough.
Oh,
And that's why the men fart more often than women. It's because women don't close their mouths long enough to build up the pressure. Star Wars 1. Only a Star Wars fan can see it. Excellent, that. Excellent. Love it. And Star Trek 1. I used to work at a chemical plant, but I had to quit. Why? It was a toxic environment.
oh.
This morning, I coughed up a pawn, a knight, and a bishop. I must have a chest infection. And when you delete all your social media accounts and go off grid, and a carrier pigeon arrives with a friend request for Fire Stick Man. Couple of Apple-related jokes. For a sneak peek at the new iPhone 17, just look at your current phone and imagine it costing £580 more. And he's a cheap alternative to an Apple Watch, which I think Mitch will appreciate. $100 here. There's a coyote under there. Thanks, Jimmy. Seem to have a bit of a theme of these going on at the minute. And there's Rambo's knife, Chuck Norris's gun, Bruce Lee's sticks, and your mum used a spoon and a slipper. And if your eyes hurt after you drink coffee, lads, you have to take the spoon out of the cup. There's a little bit of advice this week. I'm going to make you mine. Oh my God, yes, she says. And yes, I don't think that's what she had expected. And Master, what makes us human? Selecting all images with traffic lights.
Oh.
Very true. A dumb beetle walks into a bar and asks, is this stool taken? And the internet connection of my phone's really been poor, so I moved the modem to the barn. Now I've got a stable Wi-Fi.
Oh.
And welcome to Plastic Surgery Addicts Anonymous. I see a few new faces here this week. I must say I'm disappointed. And another bit of useless information for you lads. Cow farts come from the dairy air. I'll see myself. Lookalikes, Jerry Halliwell and Scary Spice spotted backstage at Glastonbury this year. And I knew the car I used to draw in primary school actually existed, lads. I haven't had a mashup for a while. Here's one. Michael Jackson. Still And man goes to the doctors and says, I feel like a picture. Doctor says, sit down and I'll look at you. And in Egypt, they dug up a mummy covered in chocolate and nuts. They think it might be a Pharaoh Rocher.
Oh, Jesus.
And supermarkets, promote your new line of antidepressants by having Lewis Capaldi sing on the roof of your store. Or why not avoid an expensive inheritance tax bill by not dying?
Exactly.
My uncle used to say, always go the extra mile. Nice bloke, terrible taxi driver. And we've got the last few here. According to Tetley, the best way to make a brew is to agitate the bag. So every morning I slap her ass and say, 2 sugars, love. Top 3. I'm absolutely livid. My husband drove all the way to pick up our AMPAC order and you people forgot the bloomin' onion. That was the only thing I wanted. My fat husband ate the bloomin' onion in the car and lied. I'm sorry and I don't know how to delete reviews. It took me way longer to shut off to figure out that was a shower and not a Dalek. The winner this week, world's worst superhero, Toilet Man. Excellent stuff. If you have any tweets to send us, then please email me, nufcmatterspodcast@gmail.com. Lads, social media. big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk, email info@mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. And don't forget the Christmas due, 21st of November 2025, 7 till 10, Tyneside Irish Centre, tickets £12. An evening with Warren Barton, Joe Allen, Adam Henderson is going to be singing as well, doing an acoustic set, and Sid from Talk of the Tune is going to be DJing. Cracking night, all in aid of Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. Couple for next year, early next year, 23rd of January, Supermat and Gibbo. Those tickets will be going on to Voucher in the next couple of weeks. I hang fire until then, but you can get your tickets from there when they come out. And similar for Peter Beardsley and Joe Allen, they're going on to Voucher very soon. That's on the 30th. So 2 weeks apart, those 2 events. And please, if you can, to support Age UK North Tyneside Dementia, get a copy of the book. 10 copies sold so far, much appreciated. We've just finished it, so we'll be getting ready to go to printers next week. Rob Maltman, our designer, is currently working on the fanzine, and once he's finished that, he'll be editing this book and putting that together. So this will be out in time for Christmas. It's £10. Get yourself to our website, nufcmatters.co.uk, or you can click on the QR code in the corner, take you straight there, and you can buy that. And again, all proceeds from that are going to Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. I can't remember who sent us this, but they put this on their TV when me and Mitch and Stu were doing the professionals a couple of weeks ago. They've got us in Anthony Gordon headbands, which can quite have the same effect, lads, when you don't have any hair, like. To be honest. And somebody also sent us this, which was on Twitter this week, which was of George, I'm sure. George may be able to give us some clarity to this. Lee Clark, North Tyneside Young Sportsman Award.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, that's you on the far right-hand side there, George.
Chairman of North Tyneside Sports Council.
Peter Kirkley behind you, is it?
Sorry?
Is that Peter Kirkley behind you?
Yes, because I used to try and include the people who were involved in the players or the sportsmen's lives generally. And at that time, Peter Kirkley was the Newcastle Development Officer. So I invited Peter. The others are from the North of England Building Society, who provided the money. It was a great scheme, and lots of young people in North Tyneside got some nice awards out of it, some nice money out of it, some nice sponsorships sometimes as well. If there was a downside, and there never really was, is that the North of England Film Society, of course, sponsored another North East team. And one of the presents I used to get for doing this for them, this promotional stuff for them, was lots of tickets for the director's box at Roker Park, which my son sometimes used as well. But that's who it is. And that year was the year Lee Clark won it, because he'd won so many trophies in the year and scored so many goals, as well as playing out of his skin for the various teams he was associated with.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, hopefully my sound's a bit better. Yeah, sometimes the internet kicks in badly here when there's bad weather, so I think it's sorted itself out now. But hopefully that's okay. Mitch looks the spit of his dad, says Derek. Yes.
Oh.
So we've had that a few times, I think, on here. Let's get back to the comments. I did keep a couple for conversation tonight. And yes, Alan McKenzie. Mitch, have you seen or heard out about the proposed new training facilities supposedly going to be sited up by Seton Burn and designed by Populous? What have we heard about this, lads? Anything or nothing?
I had a conversation with Craig Hope about it about 2 weeks ago. But it's nothing more than what we've already batted around privately. That area of land's been looked at a couple of times. Yeah. And now we're going to weigh up all the options. And again, these things take time. They want to get the facilities right. And they don't want to be in a situation where they do something and then have to redo it in 5 years' time. It's got to be something that can organically expand and grow and develop in itself as well. So I think they're right to do it properly, and they're right to be looking at all the options.
There was something on the internet today, Steve, saying that they're actually looking at drones now.
Okay, that's good. So there is a little bit of progress on that. Okay, well, we'll not dwell on that because it's speculation at the minute, nothing really concrete. Himanshu, good evening. Joined late, so not sure Karl-Heinz Rummenigge's comments have been discussed. If not, could you spare 5 minutes on them? George, did you see the comments of Karl-Heinz Rummenigge about Voldemort, and what did you make of them?
Two things. The comments were ridiculous. And B, the person that was saying them, Rummenigge, was an idiot anyway. So the two things go together. I think the only thing that's upsetting him is that they wanted him badly, and they just weren't prepared to pay the money, and we gazumped them. It's as simple as that. Nothing more for me. But I thought the whole thing from Rummenigge was just laughable, and corresponded nicely to when he was supposed to be such a good player in the Premiership, when in fact he used to get the run around week after week. So yeah, water off a duck's back, Steve. It was typical of somebody who had his apples stolen just after he picked them off the tree, because he wanted Baltimore so much that he's hacked off because we got him first.
Absolutely stinks of jealousy to me, says Kurt. Ben says, I'm going to enjoy bathing in Bayern's salty tears about Voldemort. People don't whinge about players that aren't very good, do they, says Benny. Can we call him Karl-Heinz before the trolls crop your use of his name and claim this is a racist channel? Okay, Mark, thank you. But, we always make sure that we give a disclaimer on this show. Nobody is trying to offend anybody, and I certainly didn't say that, Mark, as you rightly know. But thanks for pointing that out. Joe, what did you make of Karl-Heinz's comments?
Karl-Heinz who?
Karl-Heinz whose comments?
Yeah, you've got to operate with a bit of class, haven't you? This is Bayern Munich we're talking about. You know, it wasn't Sunderland's under-14s coach, was it? This is Bayern Munich. You know, he was an international footballer himself, and now works for one of the biggest football clubs on the planet. So you'd expect a bit of class, wouldn't you? But what it smacked to me was of they tried to sign him, they couldn't afford him, and we could. So unlucky, mate. I hope we play him in the quarter final of the Champions Champions League, and he's me getting carried away now. And I hope Big Nick scores twice and puts them out. And then we'll see who the idiot is. He's worth what he's worth. You know, we were quoted 69 million or whatever, and that's what we paid for him. If Bayern Munich wanted to buy him, they should have had 69 million to spend. So, yeah. You know, stay humble, as people have been saying in recent years in football. Act with a bit of decorum, show a bit of respect, all Walter Mader has to do is keep doing what he's doing, and you know, Bayern can say what they want and think what they want. He plays in black and white, and I think that's a fantastic thing.
Mitch, sour grapes.
Absolutely, Rummenigge this week and Uli Hoeneß last week. You know, again, fellow former German international and board member of Bayern Munich. So they've had to go with twice now on two different fronts with two different reasons why he's shit and two different reasons why we're stupid. But you've got to remember that's a club who've dominated German football for years, and they do it in spite of the 49+1 rule. You've got to remember over the last 2 or 3 years, they've pretty much told their fans to shut up or they'll stop investing in the team, and they've threatened the fan base that allegedly is there to help control the club. They've shown, you know, that disdain for how German football works, and they've missed out on a top German prospect who's seen as the future of striker play in Germany and in the German national team going forward. And it's more than sour grapes. It's bitterness because they haven't been able to do it. And how dare they waive financial things at us when you look at the wages they're paying Harry Kane and you look at the loan fee they've paid for Nicholas Jackson.
It's good to see that.
Yeah. What did you make then, Stu, of Karl-Heinz Rummenigge's comments?
It just smacks off the childhood, the playground bully that wants all the shiny marbles. They made multiple bids for him, didn't get him, and it just shows that they live in a bubble. And Bayern's a huge club, so they can have this air of expectancy, arrogance, call it what you want, that person should come to them because they want them. But it's like what we were to a point with Isaac. Yeah, you want them, you're a bigger club, but does that mean we have to just give you them? So they held their ground and they didn't meet the valuation we did. But what I will say is if transfer fees dictated how good a player was, if you pay a lot of money for someone, then over the last decade, Everton and West Ham would have been regular Champions League qualifiers. It makes no difference how much you paid for someone. It's what they're capable of doing and what the club that signs them are capable of doing with them and how they integrate them and stuff like that. And just as Mitch referenced there at the very end, I thought was going to get the free run at saying it. A club that's willing to pay £70 million for Nicholas Jackson should have nothing to say about what we paid for Nicholas Voldemort. So the fact that they're mentioning it shows that, I know I joked about sauerkraut before, but the fact that they're mentioning it shows that they feel like they've missed out. Otherwise, why would they mention it? They know that we've got the player that they wanted, and they're signing the player for equal money or more money. That isn't going to be anywhere near as good as what Big Nick is for us. Let them crack on. The more people from the outside that complain about us means we're doing something right.
Yeah.
Hateful comments never come from someone who's doing better than you are.
Yeah, very true. Yep. Very true in all walks of life. John Askew says, Elanga did very well in Brussels. Are you confident he'll thrive in the Premier League at Newcastle? I am. I've had no doubts about him. He's got to fit in. He's got to settle in. Every player has to settle in. Elanga and Big Nick have had to literally get chucked in at the deep end and get on with it. What's your thoughts, George Elanga? I think somebody made an interesting point in the chat before. Sorry, I can't remember who it was. But they said when Shaw's out with the team, we don't play those long diagonal balls anymore, which means we are bringing the wingers more into it. And, because we've got this squad, which this should have just been called the Amigos squad show because we've referred to it so many times. But it is a change. It is a change. We've got different players who will play a different way, still Eddie's style, but can bring something new to the party.
But in answer to that, yes, Shaw's long through balls are legend now. But we have got centre backs in Botman and Chow who could easily adopt that situation. They're so good on the ball. They're very capable of doing those things if that's what Eddie wants them to do. Then Elanga came to life a little bit for me in the first 25, 30 minutes against Barcelona. There were 3 or 4 times he went down the wing, and there were a couple of those times I wish he'd gone on and had a shot at goal instead of trying to make a pass. And I think he would have got better for it. So he was already starting to look better for me by the time the Barcelona game came along. On Wednesday night, it just all came together like it did for so many of the team. And it may be that a game where we dominate and gets the lads a chance to get a lot of the ball. It's just what somebody like him needs, and I think still he's going to be a great asset for us, and will become a firm favourite. And going back to another theme of mine, I watched a YouTube thing of him talking to answering questions from some local school kids. What an intelligent guy, and I could say that about nearly all the players. Chow as well, that come to Newcastle United. It's almost as though Eddie Howe's got an IQ sheet he sits out in front of them to see if they can pass it to come to Newcastle. But Anthony Elanga will I'm sure will be singing his praises long before the season ends if he can keep that those pacey runs down the wing going like he did on Wednesday.
Thoughts on Anthony Elanga now then, Joe?
Yeah, Jimmy, you can't hurt my feelings like that in the comments and then just apologise. I'm sorry, I'm not accepting that. I think Anthony Elanga has got all the potential in the world, hasn't he? The speed alone. The speed alone is enough for him to absolutely terrify people. We've just been speaking about Anthony Gordon on the other side when he's in his full pomp. Anthony Elanga's got that in his locker as well. Will there always be an end delivery on the end of that speed? Who knows? Time will tell on that, but he's under a very, very good coach, isn't he? He played very well for Nottingham Forest, scored some important goals and made some important goals for them. So why wouldn't that continue at Newcastle United, in a Champions League side with a world-class coaching team behind him? So I'm looking forward to him. I think once he gets going, once he gets up to speed, there was pockets of that in the midweek, wasn't there? We've seen a performance that we've not really seen before, so why wouldn't that continue? I don't know what his injury record's like. I don't know what the impact of just sprinting for 80, 90 minutes a week does to you. But he looks like...
obviously.
Yeah. I'm only up to 60 at the minute. He looks the part, and I think if we can get this forward line going, Wisser or no Wisser, get him running at the full-backs, get the balls in behind and let him do his thing. Why not? It's an exciting time to be a forward at Newcastle United, I think.
Thoughts on Elanga, Mitch?
Please don't, Steve, please don't read out the last comment, the previous commenter there.
Sorry, I was just distracted by a WhatsApp that looks like Dubai Sports Dentistry has been shortlisted to provide services for teams entering the Basketball World Cup in Qatar next year. So
Fantastic.
We're going to have some busy
Mabruk.
Wow. Wasn't expecting that tonight. Jesus. Look, Elanga's going to come good. Got no doubt about that. We've seen little hints of that on Wednesday night. He accepted his man of the match award very gracefully, and you could see he was quite excited yet humbled about it all. I think as a player, he's only going to mature and get better. One of the problems with these wingers like him will have a history of having players like Franz Carr, Wayne Faraday, who had all the pace of Olympic sprinter Alan Wells, but all the ball skill of Olympic sprinter Alan Wells at the same time. And so I think he's a very different player to that. I think he's been chucked in a little bit. He was expecting to be playing alongside his country mate, for example, and that idea didn't last very long, really. I do think he brings a lot of different things to the table, and certainly brings the kind of pace into our side that even Isaac didn't have. And I think as a team, we've got to learn how we can really maximise that out of him, because it's surely one of the strongest weapons in modern football is pace. And so I think as we learn and understand how we can utilise that, he's only going to get better as the squad gets better. As an individual, he comes across as a quality individual. I gather he speaks 4 or 5 languages quite fluently.
Five, yeah.
And is very, very well spoken for a professional footballer. Every time you see him interviewed, he comes across as a really, erudite and thoughtful individual. And so, again, they're a delight to have in and around the squad, in the way that our squad is growing and developing.
Elanga came with a great season behind him last year. Stu, he's showing signs of getting back to that level as well, and I'm quite confident he'll be a star player here this season.
Well, I'm going to use a phrase that really tickled a good friend of mine, Mitch's trigger. Elanga's not yet Eddie ready. He liked the Eddie ready phrase, and for me, I think we've signed a diamond. I really do. And he has pace to burn, and this is what we get from Eddie Howe. We'll go back to why they signed Anthony Gordon. They wanted someone with the pace to complement Isaac, and at the time, Almiron. They want to hit people fast, and for those who are playing in defence, you want to be not turning around and not knowing which way to turn, and you want to be not running back towards your own goal, chasing someone. And pace is key, and what you have to do is be able to know how to use it. And we wouldn't have spent 55 million quid on someone if we didn't think he knew how to use it. So in time, we'll be able to get the best out of him. And something like that Eddie Howe's referenced in a couple of recent press conferences in Elanga's defence is yes, he hasn't had the goals or assists, but maybe it's not his fault. You know, he's put the balls in, the finishing hasn't been there. He's put crosses in. There's no one been where they should have been, and sometimes it's not his fault. We just look at the match. The coach and team look at the bigger picture. And for me, I've been happy with Elanga's input, or would it be output? I don't know. But he will get better as well. And I think, again, similar to Anthony Gordon, Wednesday will only do them the world of good. The confidence it will give them. And when you're an attacking player, it is on confidence, irrespective of how mentally strong they claim to be in certain interviews. When you're doing well, you end up doing better quickly. And I think they might have taken some of that strength from our centre forward currently and thinking, right, he's hit the ground running, I've got no excuses. Now, using the metaphor, hit the ground running, no one's going to do it quicker than Elanga anyway. And what we need to do is utilise his amazing pace, these strengths that he's got. And if he can't keep his head and look up to know where he's putting the ball in, look what I've done to Jake Murphy, who was a journeyman. I think when Howe first come in, not many of us would have seen him staying in the squad past that relegation season that we did. Oh, sorry, relegation. I can't even think of the word now. But the season that we should have got relegated, but we didn't. Relegation avoidance season. That's. I think if Murphy had got shipped out then, I don't think no one would have complained about it. Yet look what happened 2 years later. So we're too quick to judge sometimes, and this is why I honestly believe Elanga can be an absolute superstar for us. And once he understands what's required of him, irrespective of the fact that he can speak 4 languages, 5 languages, 10 languages, the language that we like is the language of football, and he can certainly do that, and he's only going to get better. And if wins is a taste of it, then bring more on.
Okay, it is time to look ahead to the match on Sunday. Newcastle United are back in Premier League action. It's a 2 o'clock kickoff live on Sky Sports. Tino Livramento will miss out with a knee injury, which will sideline him until late November. Johan Wissa is expected to be missing now until the West Ham game or potentially the Brentford game in early November. But Jacob Ramsey could be on the bench on Sunday. Central defender Murillo is a doubt after he went off injured during the first half of Nottingham Forest's 3-2 home defeat by Dan's Midland in the Europa League on Thursday. They've got 5 points from 6 Premier League games, 4 of those coming during the opening 4 games of the season when their manager was Nuno Espirito Santo. Away from home, they've drawn 1-1 at Crystal Palace and Burnley, and they've lost 3-0 at Arsenal. Ange Postecoglou has lost both of his Premier League visits to St James's Park while he was managing Spurs, resoundingly beaten 4-0 and beaten last season by 2-1. Referee is Peter Banks. The Lancashire official has already refed this once this season. That was the board draw at Leeds United. Incidentally, as I mentioned last night, he only gave 1 yellow card to each side in that match, so not one for booking people. And VAR is Chris Kavanagh. Don't forget as well, the food bank will be in place on the other side of the road from the Gallagher. Get yourself over there. If you've got any money, stick it in the bucket and help a very good cause. Okay, first up, Tune Start. Now, this doesn't happen very often. Tune Statu's video hasn't loaded for some reason. So, whilst it is loading, seamless, that you say. Seamless, Joe. You wouldn't have even known there was a mistake.
And this is how it should be every week, me on before him.
Okay. Well, it's worked. It's worked. I'll bear that in mind in future.
Right, here we go then. So, for once in a little while, Newcastle are favourites to win the game. It's a funny price. It's 6-10 for a home win on Sunday. The draw is 3-1. And Forest are 4-1 to win away. 1-0 to Newcastle is 6-1. 2-0 is 7-1. Stewie, what did you get?
14.
14, all right. Well, it's 12 to take it here today. If you think Newcastle will win 3-1, you can have 12-1 tonight. And 2-1, which a few people have kind of talked about, is 13-2, which I don't think is a bad price, actually. 0-0 is 11-1, and ones each is 6-1. And if you think Forest will beat us 1-0, it is 12-1. In terms of the goal scorers, the usual suspects are there, as you can imagine, but there is some value in Anthony Elanga at 12-5. Sandro Tonali, who's playing phenomenally well at the moment, is 9-2, and Big Dan at the back stick is 10-1. Chris Wood is just under 3-1 to hurt us again, and Elliot Anderson, who's having a phenomenal start to the season, he is 9-1. If you think Big Chris will come and score a hat-trick again, it is 90-1. Walter Marder is 28-1 to score a hat-trick in comparison. The North East treble this weekend is 20-1, but that will mean that the Mackhams have got to go and win at Old Trafford. But, you know, I wouldn't cry too loudly if they do. Keep hold of your money. Don't go wild. Please gamble responsibly. But the bookmakers really do fancy a Newcastle win, so why not?
I keep holding your money in this wind as well. It could just blow out your hand. Never mind putting a bet on. Okay, here's Andre doing Stado.
Hello everyone. After the big win in the Champions League, the first win away from home since 2003, and that win against Bayer Leverkusen, and only the third away win for Newcastle in the group stages of the Champions League. Back to the Premier League. Newcastle is having their worst start to a season since 21-22, when still Steve Bruce was in charge. Currently 6 points out of 6 games. Back then it was 3 points out of 6 games. But at home to Nottingham Forest, actually the situation is a bit better. Newcastle has won 8 out of the last 9 games at St James's Park, with that game in December 23 when Chris Wood scored a hat-trick being the only defeat. Actually, this is the only defeat for Newcastle against Nottingham in the Premier League in their last 7 games, both home and away from home, with Newcastle winning the other 6. Now, when it comes to players, Nick Votemade scored in his first 2 games at St James's Park. Now, the only 2 players to have scored in their 3 first Premier League games at St James's Park are Alan Shearer and Les Ferdinand. What a company for Rummenigge if he is able to score on Sunday. Now, when it comes to Nottingham Forest, their manager Ange Postecoglou has started with no win in his first 3 games in the Premier League and no win in his first 6. Actually, the worst start to a new Nottingham Forest manager since the 60s. Postecoglou actually won his first game in charge of Tottenham against Newcastle back in 2023, but he lost the other 3 games with a goal difference of 2-8. So some heavy defeats at St James's Park, including a 4-0 in 2024. So let's see what happens on Sunday. Away the lads.
Thanks, Andre. Looking forward to seeing you in December when you come over with the lads. I've already given my prediction, as always, last night on Supermat and Gibbo 3-1. I've gone forward with Chris Wood getting the goal for Nottingham Forest. And George, I fancy him and really keep the same team. I've got a feeling we're going into the international break. He may well try and reward, the team, with that. I mean, obviously, we know Tino Livramento won't be playing. That's obvious. I think the back 4 could probably pick itself. But yeah, I maybe an unchanged team. I'm not sure. But I'm going to go for a 3-1 win, George. What do you think, squad wise, and give us a prediction?
Well, I'd be very surprised if we changed the team because there was so much harmony on the pitch on Wednesday night. I think he'll want to capitalise on that again on Sunday. I mean, he said as much after in his post-match interview, didn't he, that he hoped it was a signal for us to do better in the Premier League as well. And I think he'll start it off by trying the same 11 if he possibly can. And I would go for that. In terms of score, well, I'm always overconfident and so on. Well, it's no change this week. In fact, I can see 3-0 as a good starter and give them a nice run up the Premier League because a win would shift we're right up to the chasers, and that's where we should be. And that I'm looking forward to that actually. So same team. 3-0 win.
Okay, Joe?
Yes, same team would be great, wouldn't it? I think it will be the same team. I'm stunned that Sven Botman's going to play this amount of games in this short space of time. So long may that continue. I don't see what else Howe can do, and why wouldn't we? We were brilliant on Wednesday night, so why wouldn't you go with that? Little bits of talk about Pope versus Ramsdale, but I think with the saves that Nick Pope's making, he's justifying his position, isn't he? And I think he'll stay there until something drastic happens, kicking ability or no kicking ability. They haven't started very well. Some might argue neither have we. They do have some fantastic footballers, but so do we. I like Callum Hudson-Odoi. I really like Morgan Gibbs-White, and obviously Elliot Anderson's playing brilliantly. So they've got enough to damage us, but they've also got a manager who's a clown, in my opinion. And already his own fans are calling for his head, which I thought was brilliant. So everything's looking good. The bookies fancy us. Our Peckers will be up. And why not? Why not have an at least very comfortable, very strong 2-0 victory with Harvey Barnes on the list somewhere?
Tom Dixon's in with his usual message, Mitch. What does the dice say?
What does the dice say? Well, let's chuck the dice and then we can have a chat. The dice says Le Pen Man.
3-1. Okay, good stuff. Okay, Mitch, what's your feelings about this game?
Well, I had a chat this week, funny enough, with the lad who's the chairman of the Forest Supporters Club over here. And they're very mixed up because apparently they love Marinakis to bits for what he's done for the club, but they think he's made a massive mistake appointing Postecoglou. And they're not impressed with the way he's setting the team up with the where he's got them playing. Somebody mentioned the high line there before, and that potentially is a killer for them against us. They also mentioned they feel he's playing Anderson too deep, and they're not getting the best out of Anderson because he's forever between the two centre-backs, picking the ball up and trying to distribute rather than doing it at the top end of the pitch, where he was last season. So I find that all fascinating. That there's certainly a degree of unrest, and the only place it's going to be directed at is the manager. It's not going to be directed at the owner, for sure. So we've got a real opportunity to put another nail in there. And Postecoglou talks a good game, but that's all he ever seemed to do. And I think we've got an opportunity to build on Wednesday night to put a performance in the league with a result that we deserve. And I think as long as we turn in at the level that we know we can, that's entirely possible. And I think we've got an opportunity almost to make a statement. And there's an opportunity that we've got to grasp with both hands, in my opinion.
Okay, the dice have gone 3-1. What are you predicting?
3-0.
3-0. Okay, Stu, you always go for a 3-1. Any advance on that?
Yes, there is, but no one's mentioned it. And I may be wrong, which wouldn't be for the first time. But did the dice not say 2-1 Arsenal last week?
Did.
It said 1-2, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think it did.
I think we need to watch back, but I'm sure it did. So I think we should back the dice with what's now called the Penman, or has been for a while. But also, I want to introduce a new scoreline called the Heed, which is a 5-1. He likes to back 5-1. And that's 40-1 a minute if you're interested. So I've got both 3-1 and a 5-1. So anyone who wants to have a bet, pick somewhere in the middle, 4-0, 4-1, because it's very rare we get it right. But the debate now seems to be from Eddie doesn't know what he's doing to the fact he knows exactly what he's doing and the team shouldn't change all in the space of 90-plus minutes in Belgium. And the squad needs rotated to the players, the team needs to stay exactly the same. So what happens? And I referenced earlier that's Mr. Howe has more football in nose in his eyelash than most of us will ever have in the whole body. But my concern is something that's been in a private discussion is Eddie Howe going to go down the route that Kevin Keegan did. They call it the KK syndrome for England, where he picked the players rather than the formation, and he picked these players rather than the formation and got the players to play the formation, if that makes sense. I think Southgate was the one that was lambasted mostly for that. You get your favourites, and could Dan Burn go for that? But Dan Burn's been our player, I would say, of the last 6 months, and he deserves a place in the team. However, if we went back 18 months or 12 months, then we were going to build a team around Sven Botman. And if Sven Botman is now in his stride, he's the best defender we've got. Then you take into consideration it's a World Cup season. Does that play on Eddie Howe's mind for everything that Dan Burn's given us? We want to be the one that alienates him out with the squad going into the World Cup. However, these decisions don't have to be made yet because it's quite clear Lewis Hall isn't capable of playing 2-3 games in a week. And I only listened to the first 20 minutes of the press conference today when I was driving home to do this. And he said it himself. He referenced it anyway by saying he's not yet ready. I think that could be a bit of Eddie doing that. And I think Lewis Hall will start the game. And I think rotate, rest, because drop's a hard word, because I don't think any of them deserve to be dropped. But we have a long season and everyone's going to get the opportunity. And when you get to the position where you've got people playing at the top of the game, you don't change them. And those two centre-backs are at the top of their game. And you don't change them, and they don't deserve to be changed. Whereas, I find it very hard to, I'm not criticising, I'd say critique Dan Burn, because he's given us everything. He's probably resembled what we want to be. He's lived all our dreams, scorer of the cup final and representing his country and everything else. And I touched on it earlier on. about someone else, but he joined us to be a journeyman to help us stay up. And he's rode the Champions League sides and the international call-ups and playing at Wembley a couple of times. But is he a better left-back than Lewis Hall? And I think the answer is no. And is Lewis Hall fully fit? We don't know the answer to that. But
the answer's got to be no at the moment, because he's saying what managing.
He was fit enough to play. That's it. But he was fit enough to play at Bournemouth, and he was fit enough to play 3 or 4 days later against Bradford.
He's not fit enough to play 3 games a week, I think, is what Eddie was
No, he's
saying.
not. But he hasn't played against Arsenal, and he hasn't played against. Well, he came on, but he hasn't played in Belgium. So maybe his fitness level, with the influence of James Bunce, is higher at the moment than what Dan Burns is. And we talked about it earlier in the show, where there's going to be 2 weeks where Lewis Hall will be under the tutelage of the management team and the coaches, and Dan Burn, rightly so, is representing his country in the World Cup qualifying. So I've just got a suspicion. I know everyone's saying same team, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But I've got a suspicion that Eddie Howe dropped a Chris Waddle shoulder there and made them think they've got, for their right winger, he's going to be up against Dan Burn and he plays Lewis Hall. That's just my opinion. And as I said, I've been wrong many times before. But going forward, there will be injuries, there will be suspensions, there will be players playing out of form. We've still got 40 plus, possibly 50 plus games left this season. There's going to be ample opportunity for everyone. But something that Eddie Howe says, and he's got to be true to his word, if you get that shirt, you play well, it's yours to keep. And at the minute, those 2 centre-halves cannot be replaced. But the right back can, the left back can, and it might have worked in the team's favour, which is a horrible thing to say, but with Tino's injury, he's been our player of the season, bar none. But isn't this wonderful choices to have, rather than what we had 2 years ago in our last Champions League season, where the team was genuinely picking itself, and we have these top quality choices to make. But I think the way they play with the squad is none of them are going to think that they're being dropped or thrown out. They have been rotated, and they're all going to get opportunities. So, again, just my thought. I think he will play Lewis Hall because he indicated he wouldn't, and that's the sort of thing that Eddie Howe does. But quite obviously, and I was so proud to hear you say it last night, Steve. Thank you for joining the cult. 3-1. And the reason well, obviously I always say 3-1, but I do think Chris Wood will score. It's one of those things that'll happen. So 3-1, but I had to give the Heat a shout out because he always backs 5-1 defiantly. And it'll end up being 4-1 because it's never his score or my score. It's always 1 goal off. So that wasn't a criticism of Dan Burn, like it wasn't a criticism of Anthony Gordon earlier. But isn't this fantastic that we're in a position where we can take these players out of the team and the team doesn't get weaker? That's what a good squad does, and good squads like that qualify for the Champions League year on year. So that's where we are.
Good stuff. Time to finish with one of these. The day I met, where we asked you to send in photographs of me meeting somebody from Newcastle United, past or present, and Rafa in Babucho from James T. Dodds. Thank you very much. Good photograph. Great manager as well, Rafa. Top man. If you've got one, send it to our email address, nufcmatterspodcast@gmail.com, so we can rock along to this. A couple of emails before we finish. Mick Mullane, thank you for your tweets and stuff that you send. He's just sent us this one. He says, a man from Ashington visits the opticians for an eye test. The optician says, can you see the board okay? The man from Ashington replies, board? I can't even see the cage. Brilliant. And John Askew says, really good debate on War Anthony and showed the value of NUFC matters. George and Stu's opinions were polar opposites, but both were well articulated and had equal value. I'm more on a similar wavelength to Stu on this one, but to be honest, we're both probably in the minority. But if you can play the ball just that little bit quicker, we might reap a rich reward. We'll see. But so far this season, it's Big Nick that's probably offered the most hope. Tonali's consistent excellence is becoming laborious. Lovely, John. We started with you. We finished with you. Very good.
My considered reply.
Tomorrow morning, 9:30, it is 3 to Crowd, where we take the mick out with the Mackens and the Borough lot. Might get Melly on as well in the morning because Man United are playing Sunday. I might drop him a message and get Melly on just for the laugh. And the main George, I'm going to do Ask George at 9:30 on Sunday. Stu's very, 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 very busy, and Mitch is working as well, and then has to go out and watch the match like we all do. So 9:30 for Ask George on Sunday morning. Thanks to Stu for filling in for Steve Hasty. Thanks to Mitch, thanks to Joe, thanks to George and Andre as well. And happy anniversary to Steve Hasty and his missus.
Fantastic.
Good time, Steve. Take care. Enjoy the game, everybody. Bye bye.
Yes, everyone.
Yes, everyone. Thank you.